Welcome. I'm Tim Kinser, Technical Product Manager for DEMA Engineering Company. Today I'll be discussing preventative maintenance tips for DEMA housekeeping chemical dispensers. I'll be using a blend safe, 4-bottle and 1-bucket fill dispenser for today's demonstration. While some of DEMA's dispensers use a different water valve, they do function similar to each other and use the same preventative maintenance steps. Before I start, I will mention that my chemicals in this demonstration are represented with colored water. When servicing DEMA equipment with cleaning chemical products, eye protection and gloves must be worn. After this video, I will be answering questions during the live portion. You can submit questions at any time using the Q&A tool on the Zoom screen. Let's get started. So the first thing I like to do when I come into the account is just take a look at everything and look for leaks, any water leaks, dripping, which fortunately I see none. I take a look at my chemicals. I want to make sure my customer has got chemicals and that they're getting the products that they need. As you notice here, this chemical here, this green chemical is down low. That's something I'm going to be making note of and letting the manager know that the chemical is low. The other thing I'm noticing is that I notice that on here my window cleaner line is empty, but yet I have a near full jar of it. So that's something I'm going to be taking a look at. There's a very good chance my check valve or my foot valve here has failed. So first thing I'm going to do is just try operating the dispenser since it's sitting here ready to use. And in fact, the first thing I'll do is that window cleaner. It definitely is picking up the window cleaner. I can see some of it in the water. However, I'm already watching it primed it up, the chemical, and now it's falling back down towards the chemical reservoir. So we're going to be addressing that here in just a few moments. Next, I'll go ahead and try out my other chemicals. This is looking good, as I can see. Chemical is being introduced into the water. It looks about right. Again, it seems to be dispensing fine, and again, chemical does seem to be getting introduced into the water. Last, I'll try my mop bucket fill. That seems to be working very well too. However, again, my mop floor cleaner is running very low on the chemical, so I'll need to address that as well. So everything seems to be working well on the dispenser with the exception of a couple items I found so far. So next I'm going to go ahead and turn the water off and bleed any pressure out of the system. Just to be safe, I always like to operate both the mop bucket side and the bottle fill side. No water came out, so I feel pretty confident now that I've removed the pressure loose. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and take off the knob. This is the selector knob. I'm going to go ahead and remove the cover. Now I can see the inside of my dispenser here. I can see my water valve buttons and the water valve bodies. I can see my action gap backflow preventers. And I can see my proportioners here. I have a green one for 1 GPM and a white one for 4 GPM for the mop bucket side. And these are all my chemical pickup lines. And this line right here is the window cleaner that we suspect has got a bad check valve. Additionally, I have my discharge tubes here as well, and I'll look at those as well here in a few moments. The first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is disconnect my chemical pickup lines. From that point, I can go ahead and remove my selector valve. Now with the selector valve, it seemed to be working okay for one thing. But if it didn't work very well, one thing you can do is soak it in water and see if that helps it out. If that doesn't help it out, then it probably needs to be replaced. Next, I'm going to go ahead and remove my proportioner and backflow device, which happens to be an action gap. With this, the best thing to do is to soak it in some water, or if you feel like there's a lot of lime built up on it, you can actually soak it in a deliming agent. Now sometimes that requires an overnight soak. If that's the case, you should plan on replacing this and taking this one back to your shop and soaking it in a deliming agent. I will point out that was the action gap version that I have. There is an air gap version of the proportioner as well, but it's the same identical process for soaking to help enable the unit to work better. Next, I'm going to remove the mop bucket fill hose, the discharge hose. Again, drain the liquid out of it. I'm looking to see if it's tarnished, if it's got any cracks in it, and if it does, it needs to be replaced. I'll go ahead and take a moment to let you know that DEMA also offers the mop bucket fill hose and the bottle discharge hose in a gray solid color so that it hides some of the tarnishing that the chemicals might cause. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take my mop bucket proportioner and backflow preventer off. Again, the same procedure. I'm going to go ahead and soak this in some water, try to break up any buildup of chemical residue or any other debris that's in it, and rinse it out. It'll be ready to use. That brings me to my next point. There's metering tips, which are sort of difficult to see on the camera today, but they're small plastic metering tips that go into the pickup fittings on the selector valve or on the pickup elbow and the mop bucket fill. These might get clogged with chemical residue. You can soak them in water and see if that will clear them out. I would not advise sticking any object, any pin or anything through it, as you can change the diameter or scar it up to where it doesn't work correctly. If it can't be cleaned, if it doesn't flush out with water rinsing, I recommend replacing those. Now that I have it completely apart, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my water line. I'm disconnecting my water line primarily so that I can see this washer that you can find at the garden hose fitting that has a strainer screen on it. If it's got a lot of debris or lime buildup on it, you can try breaking it free, rinsing it out, cleaning it. If not, go ahead and consider replacing this part. Today mine is fine, so I'm just going to leave it alone. Next, I'm going to go ahead and get into the water valves. Sort of loosen each one of them up by gently taking the pliers and just a little bit of a counterclockwise motion. And then I want to be very careful as to not lose my components here. So I sort of take them all out as one and keep them together, taking a quick look at them. Mine are very clean today, so I'm going to not have to do anything. If they had a lot of buildup of lime or what have you, you can clean it off or replace those components. Same thing for the mop bucket side. Next, I'm going to take the diaphragms out, which are the most likely components in there that might need replacement or cleaning. You can look through the diaphragm for the hole in the center and the two outer holes to see if you see light through them. If you do, you're probably in good shape. If you can't see light through those, you probably should consider replacing this component. Both of mine look pretty good today, so I'm going to go ahead and put them back in. But before I do so, I'm going to take a moment to wipe out the inside of the valve body just to remove any debris, any lime buildup. Now I'll place the diaphragms back in. Now that I've done that, I'm going to reassemble the valve components Again, be careful to get them all in the right order. You know when you had the valves assembled correctly because you'll hear this little audible click. That is a good sign that you've put them together correctly. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start putting my proportioners back on. First, I'll do my mop bucket side. I'll go ahead and put the pickup line on that. Next, I'll grab my bottle fill proportioner. Now with this one, you want to make sure that you thread it around so that this hole here is facing out. This is where our selector is going to go, which I will go ahead and install now. Now with the selector, put it on about as tight as you can with hand tight, but you'll have to probably back it up a little bit just to give this pin right here. You need to have it at 12 o'clock so that it aligns with a mating hole in the cover, which we'll be putting on here in just a few moments. Now that I've done that, I'll go ahead and start putting some of my pickup lines up. So the last line we'll address here will be our window cleaner line. I want to go ahead and take that off. I know that it's failing. Most likely it's failing in the check valve here. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I'm going to go ahead and discard it. I'll go ahead and pull the ceramic weight off of it. I do have my new line here. However, I did want to take a moment to mention DEMA's SafeLink closed loop non-chemical contact system. If you have a cap like this, the thing you might need to do, if it's not holding prime, the check valve's not working right, you could try soaking this in water and let it set for a little bit. If that does not fix it, then you're just going to have to replace the cap. But today we're going to go ahead and replace the line with our normal foot valve line. Now with our normal foot valve, the way this works is fluid can come in this way, but cannot come back out this way. And right now our old check valve was allowing fluid to come back out, and that's why we're replacing this today. So I'm going to go ahead and do so. I'll put the ceramic weight on there. This will keep it at the bottom of the chemical container. Go ahead and install it. Now as an alternative, I could use this 1172.2 check valve. What I could do is simply cut on that old line right about here and splice it in. And that would do the same job. So that is a good choice or an alternative choice when your foot valve has failed. Now that I have everything connected, I'll go ahead and put my knob back on. And I'll go ahead and hook my water line back up. I'll also go ahead and install my mop bucket fill discharge hose. So it looks like I have everything in place except, of course, the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the water on. There are no leaks that I can see, so I feel comfortable with that so far. Next, I'm going to go ahead and operate the mop bucket side. Again, that seems to be working fine, other than the fact that I am low on my chemical here, but it certainly seems to be drawing. If you're ever wondering if there's a good suction on it, you can always disconnect that pickup line like I just did. Go ahead and point your hose down towards the mop bucket fill and turn it on, and put your thumb over the pickup fitting there, and you should be able to feel a vacuum. And if you do, then you know that the Venturi is working correctly. And it is today. And of course, you can do the very same thing with the selector valve side as well. Next, I'm going to start testing all of my bottle fill options. This seems to be working fine. You'll have to hold the selector valve while you turn the knob, or otherwise it may turn on you. Seems to be working fine. Now I'll test my window cleaner in my new tube. There we go. Now it's working. I can also see that I'm introducing chemical into the water as well. And I can clearly see that I'm holding a prime now on my tubing here. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this knob off, selector knob. Go ahead and place the cover back on. Go ahead and put my knob back on. And then of course the cover gets screwed down in 3 different points, here, here, and here. Once I have done all of that, the last thing I like to really do is wipe it down. Wipe down the dispenser, any dirt, buildup of chemical, anything that's on it. Get it nice and clean. You could even consider replacing some of the chemical product labels as well. So it adds a nice touch to your preventative maintenance visit, and your customers will really like you for that. It's usually just really does nothing more than put off a message that you do care about the account that you're servicing. And with that, I think I've completed my preventative maintenance visit here, and I'm ready to move on to my next one. I hope that this demonstration has offered some insight into good preventative maintenance. Beside me are a variety of DEMA's housekeeping chemical dispensing products: Dilution at Hand, Fusion, Blend Center, and Extreme 4. The components may be different, but the procedures are very much the same. Remember that in a few moments, I will be answering questions live. Use the Q&A tool on the Zoom screen to submit any questions. Thank you.
DEMA, Dispensing Innovation.